Going into the running back is where I think we have our first little bit of intrigue. Currently on the roster, we have Devin Singletary, James Cook, Duke Johnson, Zach Moss. I guess we'll count Taiwan Jones in there, and then the undrafted rookie free agent, Raheem Blackshear. For this exercise today, I want to make it clear right from the top. This is by no means a roster projection, 53-man roster projection, depth chart projection, anything like that. Just kind of like a preview going into training camp of where I think some of the most intriguing battles are going to be for roster spots. So at the running back position, I expect Singletary to come in firmly planted in kind of that 1A position. I leave out the term just RB1 because I don't really see this organization, this coaching staff, really committing to the quote-unquote bell cow running back. I think we've seen over the years under McDermott, under Bean, that they kind of want that running back by committee approach. They don't want it to be, one guy goes down and you're dead in the water. And that's kind of what we ended up seeing towards the end of last year. It was kind of just Singletary was really the only person that they trusted with the ball. Zach Moss was disappointing at times. Breida had some security issues. So down the stretch, we didn't really see anybody else come in to kind of salt away a lead, kind of mix it up and get significant touches. It was pretty much Singletary down the stretch. So I think we start out this season and we see Singletary in much the same role. Where I think we see it get a little bit different is obviously the drafting of James Cook. And I don't think that this organization really likes to hand the reins over to rookies and just thrust them into a spot. That being said, running back is one of the positions that translates quickly to the NFL. It seems to be more, scheme and personnel around them that really lets them develop early. And with this significant investment in James Cook being in the second round, I think we see him become a pretty big focal point in the offense early on, whether it's kind of some of the stretch runs, being very involved in the passing game. I think we see an awful lot of him. So I think he's pretty locked up in one of those top two spots. Obviously, they're still going to make him earn it in training camp. We don't see anything just be given to players here. But I think he's going to be able to carve out a role very early on. Which leaves us with kind of the battle between Duke Johnson and Zach Moss, with Taiwan Jones taking up a roster spot being largely just special teams. In years past, we've seen that RB3 role kind of be like game day inactive, bring him up here and there, maybe matchup specific. But we've seen it with Matt Breida. We've seen it with TJ Yeldon, where they're largely inactive and don't really get much run. So with the drafting of James Cook, I feel like we saw the organization looking to bring in J.D. McKissick. Obviously, that fell through. Duke Johnson ended up being kind of the contingency plan there. And then, obviously, the drafting of James Cook. So it's very obvious. I don't know if this is driven by Dorsey and what he wants to do with the offense, or if that's kind of just the type of running back they're looking for right now. But we saw them aggressively pursue a certain type of running back, and that's, the little bit more speed, the more natural pass catching option. And we've seen Singletary do some damage in the passing game. But to my eye, he never really looked natural and comfortable catching the ball. And watching some of the James Cook tape, he looks like he's kind of like an undersized receiver, I guess. He just looks very natural and comfortable doing it, and very dangerous out of the backfield once the ball's in his hands. And I think that making him a second-round pick kind of makes Duke Johnson become a little bit redundant in this room. So I think we see Zach Moss win out that battle, if for nothing else other than kind of bringing a skill set that none of these none of these other players really have, so to speak. And that's kind of the downhill, short yardage banger between the tackles. And I say that a lot in, that's what's said about Moss. I've honestly, over the years, felt like Singletary's been better in that role. But I think Moss also had an interesting first couple of years in the league. He's battled some injuries. And I think he also has the caveat of being a third round pick by Brandon Beane. And we've seen Brandon Beane be in love with his draft picks and really try to give them time to pan out. Thinking about a guy like Dawson Knox that, took some time to develop but really came on strong. My concern with Moss is, as I mentioned before, running backs typically, transition to the NFL a lot quicker than other positions. And we're now going into year 3 with Moss. But all that being said, I think kind of the investment that they've made in him as a player, having a little bit of a different skill set, I think that kind of keeps him in that room at least. And we probably see him be a game day inactive pretty often. Maybe in a matchup where, we think we can have some advantages between the tackles and kind of want to play more of a grinded out style of game versus letting the ball fly all over the field. Maybe we see him more in those kinds of situations. But I think this passing offense is really going to be opened up this year with the addition of Cook in the backfield. So I don't think we see a ton from Moss this year. And then Raheem Blackshear, I'm going to kind of leave the undrafted free agents out of this too much until we really see them perform. It's a tough team to make as an undrafted rookie. So I kind of think that they have just this uphill battle to climb to even sniff at a roster spot. But you never know how things are going to shake out in training camp. So we'll kind of keep an eye on him and see if he can make any noise and go down that route a little bit more when we get into actual roster projections.